Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Lee's podcast. I'm your host, Lee Yang. Today, I have a guest. Her name is Diana. How you doing, Diana?
Good.
All right. But before we start, can you introduce yourself and maybe share a little something about yourself? Whatever you're willing to share.
My name's Diana, and I am Uncle Lee and Auntie Mater's oldest niece on Auntie's side.
Yes. And there's a reason why I have you here. And we kind of spoke before you came in, and you're willing to share it. And so I think your story speaks to a lot of, I don't know, Hmong women out there, or maybe even just, women in general, right? And what would that be?
I think maybe something that a lot of people can relate to is me being a single mom, getting back out there.
Are you dating?
Oh, yeah. So being a single mom and dating.
All right. So let's not jump ahead, but let me ask, okay, a single mother dating. How was that? I mean, because obviously I know of a few people that are single, but they're not married, right? Who doesn't have a child. And it's hard for them. You know what I'm saying? You know where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
It's hard enough for them to find someone, but here you are, a single mother, and you found someone.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like maybe it's the age of the dating app kind of makes it easier.
Like which app?
How
How many apps are there?
There's so many apps, but for myself specifically, like Bumble.
Okay.
Um,
What's the other one? Tinder?
yeah, I don't know if I would consider that
A
a
dating app?
reputable dating app.
I wouldn't know. Is that an app?
Yeah.
That app is used just to hook up with people.
I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So whoever's using Tinder, we know why you're using it.
Yes. Rethink your life choices.
But there's apps now for whoever, especially who are a little older. Maybe not college kids, right? Well, even college kids, right?
Yep.
I mean, they can use these apps to find someone.
Yeah. I think it helps because, so, when you're in college, you're meeting people in class. But when you're in your late 20s, where are you going to meet people,
At the
And,
bar?
I don't know. Do I want to meet a 29, 30-year-old who still goes to the bar every Friday?
Well, that's true.
Do I want to be a 29-year-old who still goes to the bar every Friday? I don't know. I'm just not about that life.
Because you're responsible. That's what I would assume.
Yeah.
Well, not to say that people that go to the bar aren't responsible, but it's just how I'm assuming it's your upbringing, isn't it? I mean, that plays a role as to who you are, as to why you don't go to the bar.
Yeah, that's a part of it. But really, I think a lot of it is just that it's hard to meet people nowadays. My brother even joked that maybe he'll go back to grad school just so he can meet someone.
So these dating apps, I'm just kind of curious, how effective, what are the percentage of meeting someone that matches your personality? And how long did you use the app until you found someone? I'm assuming you found that person on the app.
Yeah, so I
Okay.
would say probably about 2 years. But Harpreet and I, we kind of have an interesting story where we met maybe a year into me using the dating apps, and then we kind of just stayed friends. And then, you date people, you meet people, and then you just keep going back to that one person where you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this person, I feel like we could really make it work. So that's kind of the nice thing about dating apps is that you're meeting so many people in such a short amount of time. And so on one hand, you might feel like, oh, with dating apps, you'll never feel like you're always going to feel like there's something better out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me, dating apps showed me that there are a ton of people out there, but none of them are going to be as good for me as the person that I'm with.
Okay. Now, do you have people that would approach you and say, hey, can we meet, or are you interested? And then you can respond at that time, like, I'm not interested. Is there a profile that you look through? Then how does that work?
Oh, yeah, it's a profile.
Okay.
Yeah. So with Bumble specifically, you swipe through it.
So it's kind of like Tinder. You kind of swipe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then depending on who you match with, the girl will reach out first. And then the guy has the option of responding or not responding as well.
Okay. Now, do you think girls will reach out to the guys also? Or is it mainly the guys that reaches out to the girls first?
So for Bumble specifically, it has to be the girl reaching out to the guy first. That's
Okay.
kind of like their shtick. Like, oh, the power is in the girls.
Oh, so when a guy swipe like, then the girl can respond if they like. Is that how that works?
So you both have to match swipe wise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then once you match, then you get 24 hours where it's like, do you want to message this person or not? And if you don't within 24 hours, then it'll just kind of go away.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's an easy way
High
of saying.
level. Yeah.
That's an easy way of saying I'm not interested.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to answer. There's no awkward conversation or anything. Okay. How many guys did you meet?
That I've gone out on dates with? A lot of guys. Maybe
within the 2 years, right?
Within the 2 years. And mind you, these are like, when I say go out, like we went on like one first date, and then it might have just been like, oh, I think this is someone that I see more as a friend, or this is someone that I do not like at all. So maybe like ballpark range, I want to say like 20, 24-ish.
Do you pay for the dinner, the
No.
lunch?
So here's my
Okay.
tell. Here's my
Okay,
tell.
wait. I say that because obviously I'm not dating, right?
Yeah.
And when I was dating your aunt, I would pay for
Everything.
everything. Yeah, that's how it goes, right?
Uh-huh.
She would say otherwise. She would say that, no, I pay. But, that's how it goes, right? I
Yeah.
pay for almost everything. Is that the case in the dating scene now? Like, do you split the check? Or do you just, how does that work?
So the thing with dating apps is that I think a lot of times your first date is just, hey, let's grab coffee, or hey, let's
I see.
do something little. And especially with COVID, we weren't like going out and doing too many things anyway. But my tell is always that if I don't like how the date is going, I will insist on splitting the bill, or I would insist on paying splitting the bill as kind of a way to not feel obligated to have to see them again. So some guys are probably like, wow, she's such a feminist. She's splitting the bill with me, when it's really like, no, I never want to see you again.
Have you had second dates?
Yeah.
Oh, the first one would you consider the first one a date then? Or is just a meet and greet kind of, let's go have coffee and see how it goes?
Yeah, I would consider the first date or the coffee date as a first date.
Okay.
too.
Is there a second date then with some of these guys, the 20, 25 guys? Okay.
Yeah, there were a lot of second dates too. I think the thing that I learned with dating apps is that you can connect with a lot of people and care about a lot of people and love them as human beings, but it doesn't mean that that's your person and that you have to be with them for the rest of your life.
I tell some of my nieces and nephews, and I tell them that obviously they're not using a dating app. And I tell them, hey, just go and meet someone. If anything, you'll make a friend, right?
Exactly.
Because the kids now, at least the kids in our family, they don't have any social skills, in my opinion. Because you know what they do most of the time?
On their phones.
On their phones,
Yeah.
You're right. Playing games, right? We're in a digital age where you can easily access everything. A dating app or Roblox or StarCraft on a computer or Valorant, right? These are these games that these kids are playing, right? And I'm calling my kids out, okay? And they know this because I talk to them about it. But there's a lack of social interaction with these kids now, with this new generation. At least that's in my opinion. The only interaction they get is through through Discord or through online.
Right.
I joke about it with my boys, right? It's like, oh man, are you gonna meet someone online? Right? Are you dating them online? But that's how it is now. You know, they're playing games and they're chit chatting. Oh man, I met this awesome girl and she's the other character that I'm playing with, and she's on my team on this game that we're playing.
Do they ever see their faces? Do they share pictures?
Nope.
Oh no.
No,
It's just all avatars.
Avatars, or I don't know how they communicate, to be honest.
See, that's on a even more that's on a different level from dating.
That's not dating. That's just playing games. But I like to joke with them about it because there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
You know, obviously you have a dating app. There is a purpose behind that. For them as boys or even girls, they're just meeting someone online. They're seeing their avatar, and that's it. And so my concern is that, are they gonna be able to develop social skills when they actually meet someone in person, face to face? Are they going to be awkward? Like, I don't know, right? So, but I'm concerned as a dad.
And then Tristan goes to an all boys school too.
Yes, right. That's why Neil's going to Pies. He's like, yes, there's girls there. I'm like, good for you, buddy. So let's talk about who you're with, and let's go into a little deeper as to being a Hmong woman, single mother, dating someone like your boyfriend now. Okay, so let me ask specifically: are you two going out?
Yes.
Okay, he is.
He is my boyfriend.
Officially, right?
Officially.
Yes. Now, would you want to share the story of how you broke the news to your parents, or has that not happened yet?
So the plan was that I would tell my parents, but I think a lot of people can relate to this where the person that you're interested in or dating, they first come around as just a friend. But I mean, our parents aren't dumb. They know that this is a special friend. And so I feel like the moment has almost passed now where it's like, it's too awkward to say, oh, mom, like to introduce him as my boyfriend when in their minds, they probably have already labeled him as my boyfriend.
So what's the point, right?
Yeah.
So even if you did, I'm assuming they would have said, yeah, well, obviously we already know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was no conversation. It's just assumed that, hey, mom and dad knows already.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was visiting this weekend. This was we had a little game night with my friends. So he came into town and he stayed for the weekend because he lives in Chicago. And my parents, they kind of go, because I live across the street from my parents. Mm-hmm. It's everybody loves Raymond. They just pop in whenever they feel like it. And so my parents decided on this night that they were going to sleep at my house. And so they come in and we're sitting on the couch. My daughter, Vera, she's upstairs brushing her teeth, getting ready for bed.
Did they know he was over?
No, I like to keep them on their toes. So they come in and they're like, ready for bed. And they're like, oh, you're here. Yeah. Hi. And they've met him before. So they had a little chit chat. And I let them know that he's going to be joining us on our family trip to Colorado this year. Oh, yes.
Cool. Yeah.
And my mom was positive about it.
Oh, yes. That's a good thing, too.
It was good.
Now, our listeners do not know he is not Hmong, correct?
Correct.
All right. I'm not sure if you want to reveal that or not.
Oh, yes. No. So my boyfriend is, he's a Sikh Punjabi man. And he came here when he was 1. So I would still consider him as basically first generation, just like us. He was a baby when he came.
Yeah.
I think it's funny because we haven't told the listeners, but I've been married before. Okay. Culturally married before.
Hey, it's your story to share. I'm not going to ask. You need to disclose it.
I've been culturally married before.
And the person you married before?
He was Laos.
Okay.
And we have a daughter together. And so when we culturally divorced, I remember running into my aunt. Her and my uncle own a clinic. They run a clinic, and I happened to be going in to take Vera in for a checkup, and she was, asking me, catching up with me. She's like, Diana, are you dating anyone? And I'm like, no, Auntie. And she's like, you haven't found any nice Hmong boys? And I'm like, oh, Auntie, no Hmong mother is going to let me date their precious Hmong son. And she laughed, and she was like, you know what? Just like how you guys don't listen to your parents, they don't listen to their parents either. She's like, you will find someone. And I'm like, no, I don't want to blow anyone's spot up like that. And so funny enough, though, instead of dating a first generation Hmong guy, I'm dating a first generation Indian guy.
Were you not attracted to Hmong, or is that the worry that you had that if you were to date a Hmong guy, that it just might not work because of how Hmong parents are and how they might view you?
I think for myself, I don't think that I am actively seeking any particular race. So I wouldn't say oh, I don't want to date a Hmong guy, or I never wanted to date a Hmong guy.
But if it happened, it would have happened.
Yeah,
right?
if it happens, it happens. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, if I was going for just what's easy, then, obviously just going for a white guy is what would be easiest, right?
Yeah.
In their culture, or in the American culture, it's pretty normal to,
Kind of out date
have
outside.
like date outside, and like single parents are pretty acceptable. With Harpreet, it's the same obstacle that I feel like I would have had if it was like a Hmong guy that I was dating.
Now with Harpreet, he was okay. That obviously you were married before culturally, and you have Vera. I'm assuming he's totally cool with it because you're together. Is it hard to find a guy that's willing to accept you for who you are in the situation you're in, like with having Vera? Because going back to what we were talking about with Hmong men, there's not, well, I shouldn't assume, but, having a Hmong guy, meeting a Hmong guy to accept you for who you are, I'm not sure how difficult that would be. And you're right. Being American or non-Hmong, it'll be easier because it's widely accepted. I'm assuming he accepted you for who you are.
Yeah, and I think that's like one of the nice things, I guess, about dating apps is that you lay everything out.
Oh,
Or I mean, you
yes.
have the option to lay everything out.
Yeah.
So, anyone that would have seen my profile, that's the first thing that they would have seen. Oh, she's a mom. So there's no like question about like, is this going to be okay? Are they going to accept it?
And it's better to do it that way anyway.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to kind of get them emotionally attached, and all of a sudden you're going to surprise them. Hey, I have a child, right?
Yeah.
It becomes very difficult, and it's not fair to whoever you're seeing or whoever you're getting to know. How did your parents take it, though? How did they take it in the beginning? You came around with him. Did they say anything? Did other people in the family beyond your parents, like uncles and aunties, did they say anything?
So my parents have always maintained that their preference would be Hmong. And for them, they see it more as, and I think a lot of Hmong kids can relate to this. My parents always bring up the fact that if they're not Hmong, how will I communicate with them?
Yeah.
Because our parents speak broken English. And so that was always their thing. But as we got older, my parents have kind of pumped the brakes on that. Obviously, none of my siblings have ever brought home a Hmong person. So I think my parents have adjusted their expectations. And so when I started dating again, my mom said to me, Diana, if you're not going to date a Hmong person, me and Dad would at least like for it to be a white person, and a white American person.
Yeah.
And so, when you hear something like that, you're like, oh, you're so racist. This is racism. But she had her own reasoning for it. So their reasoning is that if you're dating a Hmong person, you share some sort of culture with them.
Correct.
Right? And if you're dating a white American person, as first-generation Americans, we share some culture with them as well.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're dating someone that's, like in my case, someone that's Indian American, she feel like there's going to be that clash of my Hmong culture and his Indian culture. But I think what's really beautiful and that what she doesn't understand is that what Harpreet and I, the culture that we share is the culture of being first generation Americans specifically. And that's something that Americans would never understand, or like Caucasian Americans would never understand.
How about religion? Religion-wise, he's Sikh. Is he religious?
I would say that he is religious, but he's not. I think I would kind of default to how you and Auntie are, where you have your religion, you feel very strong in your beliefs, but you don't force it on other people, and you don't hold other people to those same expectations. Like your relationship with religion is your relationship with religion. So we've never really clashed on that. Also, I feel like I'm pretty open as well.
He's not about to convert you.
Yeah, no, he's not about to convert me.
Because, in the Hmong culture, if you're to marry a Hmong man, and if he goes to church or if he still does shamanism, you have to convert. And that's what the expectation of your in-laws is going to have on you, which is something that a lot of, I guess, not older, but more mature Hmong women, I'm assuming whoever's listening, I'm assuming they'll agree with me, is that they don't want to do that. They want to keep their independence, correct? And you still keep your independence, and he gives you that independence to do whatever you want, and he's not going to try to convert you. I'm assuming that's the case, right?
Yes. Now, mind you, we've known each other for almost 2 years, or no, we've known each other for 2 years, but we've only been seriously dating for about like 10 or so months. And so we haven't really talked about, oh, with our future children, will we raise them as such and such or as such and such? But even then, for myself, I feel like I don't have a horse in the religion race. So if he feels strongly about something, I'm open to
Nice.
I'm open to
Okay.
going with what he feels.
And then now we spoke about your parents and their view, how they see your relationship. How about his parents? Did he reveal to his parents that he's dating you as a Hmong American woman?
Yep. So he has told his parents. So a bit of a funny story. I think if for anyone who's ever dated, for lack of a better word, a brown person, whether it's Middle Eastern, Indian, or at least from all my dates that I've gone on, from my extensive research,
Personal research.
I've been told that in the past, their girlfriends are upset because they don't introduce them to their parents right away. And I think in some ways I can understand that. We're Hmong, but we've Americanized so much that we forget that a long time ago, you wouldn't introduce your significant other to your parents unless you guys were ready to get married, right?
Yes.
Like, I don't know if that's how it was for you and Auntie.
Yes. I mean, that's how it was for me, you know. I knew I was going to marry her. And so, and my parents, they knew of her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she came around, kind of like how you guys did it. But they weren't sure how serious it was,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But for, you know, I mean, it could run or it could happen multiple ways or various ways of it happening. But that's how it was for me.
Do you feel like with your parents then that you guys were like friends? This is who I'm going to marry now. Or was there like a progression of this is my girlfriend, this is my
Nope.
fiance?
There was none. We didn't have those tires.
Marriage.
Yep. I'm just seeing her, and then my mom's like, "Hey, we know you're seeing her, and she's coming around. Like, not like to the house or anything, but we see you with her, or we know that you're with her, and so are you going to marry her?" That's one day my mom asked me that, and I said, "Yeah, I am."
Mm-hmm.
And this was 6 months into it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So we just got married. But it was something that, you know, I kind of knew. So if you know it's the one, then you just have to move forward with it, you know. And also at that age, you know, keep in mind that in the Hmong culture, right, the thought is that if you're reaching your upper 20s, early 30s,
Mm-hmm.
you're considered old, you know. You're an old maid, especially for a woman, right? Or for a guy, you're like, man, you know, all my friends are getting married.
Yeah.
And so what's going on with you, buddy? I'm like,
Right.
oh, man. I just don't have it, you know. I just don't have the juice or the mojo that everybody's having. I don't know. So, but it wasn't that was a motivating factor for me to marry Auntie, but it was something that was in the back of my mind, you know. So, but obviously, you two aren't talking about marriage.
I mean, we've talked about it because of our age. We've talked about it, and because we're long distance, we've had to talk about it just for logistics. Like, where would we live in the future?
Yes.
You know, because if we couldn't agree on that, then there's no point in continuing to date. You know what I mean?
Well, you know what? You bring up an interesting point is that you have these, what Auntie and I have, these what ifs questions.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it prepares you, with Auntie and I, it prepares us with any scenarios or anything that would happen in the future with the kids, right?
Yeah.
If they get married or not, where would they live? We also have these what ifs if I'm not around.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what would you do? You know, how would you take care of the kids and all that stuff? But I think that's a normal thing to do, I think. And that's what you guys had. I'm assuming these what ifs.
Yeah.
We have kids, or what if we get married, and what religion will we be, or would the kids be?
Yeah. So we've kind of broached those subjects, especially when he was trying to figure out what job he should take. We talked a lot about marriage, even though we were still newly serious, but it was a conversation that we had together, which I appreciated that he included my input in such a big life decision. But the story that I was getting at was that, because Harpreet went camping with us last year, and at that time he was just a friend to everyone. He was just a friend. And to be honest, we weren't boyfriend and girlfriend at that time, but we were exclusively dating. And prior to Harpreet and I dating, there was another person that I dated, and he was Pakistani. And it didn't work out, partly because he was really busy with school and work. You know, we decided maybe we're just better off as friends too. Just personality-wise, I decided that we're better off as friends. But a part of me also did wonder, is it because he's Muslim? And is it because I'm a single mom with a child from a previous marriage? Maybe that's why maybe he's just using school and work as an excuse. But then, and that was like a year ago, a year before Harpreet and I started dating. And so when Harpreet and I started dating, you know, we started posting things on like Snapchat, and this guy that I dated, we had stayed friends. So he actually reached out to me and he was like, Diana, like I got the job that I wanted. I finished my class and like, I'm ready to like be serious. And I'm like, dude, I see you looking at my stories on Snapchat. Like,
can you see who's what?
Yeah, you can see who sees your stuff. So I'm like, and I called him out because we are on friendly terms. So I'm like, you just want what you can't have. You know, now that you see me with this other man, now you're like, oh, I'm ready to like settle down. And like, you're the girl of my dreams. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. No, thank you. But funny enough, he maybe like 3 weeks after professing that he wants to make things work with me, he started dating someone else. And she's a Hmong woman.
Oh,
and
no kidding.
She's a single mom.
Wow, yeah.
And I was looking at their profile and saw she was posting him a lot. And he had not posted her at all.
Uh-oh.
And so I was like, and this is just me being petty, because I don't want him. I said no to him, right? But of course, there's always that part of you that's like, but I'm better than that girl, though. And so I'm just looking at these photos of her posting him and him not posting her, not acknowledging her. And I'm just like showing my sisters, like, see, look, you know, he doesn't even post her. He doesn't even claim her. And my dad always used to say this to us, where he would say, don't point your fingers at other people. Because when you point your fingers at other people, there are 3 fingers pointing back at you.
That is smart, yes.
And so I was judging this girl and this guy, and I was like, oh my God. But Harpreet hasn't posted me. And in fact, we posted a photo together. We went to a wedding for my coworker, and I was like, hey, can I tag you in this? And he's like, yeah, go ahead. I tagged him. But then we had to untag him because he was getting messages from like family members from India, like, hey, are you getting married? Like, are you engaged? Because they don't understand the concept of dating, you know, there. Yeah. So it's like, oh, you're introducing a girl. That must mean you guys are getting married.
That's how it is for them, huh?
Yeah. And so I was kind of like, you know, on one hand, Harpreet can't like openly just post me all over the place. But it's because for him, it means something different than it does for us.
Okay.
You know? And so I'm trying to be understanding about that.
It's social media.
It's just social media.
It's just social media. It's what matters when he's with you.
Yes.
And it's matter is that your parents know, his parents know. So everything else is just whatever. At
right.
least, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That's how I tried to console myself, because I was like, you know what? 3 fingers pointing back at me. But you know what? His parents know about me, so.
Let me ask about that then. If, okay, hypothetically, right, we ask these what if questions. What if he didn't acknowledge you with his parents? Or whatever. He's like, you know what? I'll tell my parents whenever I get to it. And it's a month into it, 2 months into it. 3 months into it, you know, a year into it, 2 years, whatever, right? And you're like, hey, are you going to tell your mom and dad about me? Because my parents know about you, right? How would you feel then?
Initially, not with him, but with other people that I've dated, I felt like if it's a part of their culture, I can wait until they feel more sure about me to tell their parents. But mind you, those people that I felt that way with, we only went on like 1 or 2 or 3 dates, maybe dated for like 2 months, 3 months. But with Harpreet, because we had known each other for a year and then we started exclusively dating for a couple of months, when we finally became boyfriend and girlfriend, I insisted that he tell his parents. And he did.
He was okay. He was okay with it, right?
Well,
or was he a little bit reserved? Like, let me wait.
So because he is first generation American, his parents did understand that he will date. And they did understand that just because he dates someone, it doesn't mean that they're going to get married. He would tell his parent, and, you know, obviously they asked, like, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going up to Milwaukee. Why are you going to Milwaukee? What's in Milwaukee? And so eventually he had to tell them, like, oh yeah, I'm visiting my friend Diana. And, you know, just like how my parents knew that he was more than a friend, his parents, I'm assuming, also realized that I was more than a friend too. But the big thing, so they knew about me and they knew that I was Hmong. They knew that I had been married before, and they knew that so we're Catholic, so they knew that I was Catholic, but they didn't know that I had a daughter. So that was the wrench. So his parents were fine.
When they found out?
No, they were fine with me being divorced. They were fine with me being Hmong. They were fine with me being Catholic. But Harpreet, the way he put it was, you know, I want to ease them into it. I've already dropped all these little bombs. I kind of want to like slowly get them used to the idea. You know, this was like in September. And so we'd only been boyfriend and girlfriend for like a month or so. So I'm like, okay, you know, I totally understand. Being Asian ourselves, like we know the expectations that our parents have for us, the lives that they've dreamed about for us. And like, I understand the idea of having to ease your parents into that idea. And so I was kind of like, chill. I was such a cool girlfriend. I'm like, yeah. You have like a year to do it, you know.
Yeah.
As long as you do it within a year. And then I talked to my friends, my girlfriends. And, you know, my girlfriends, they're the most amazing, independent, strong women. And honestly, all the women in my life, actually, like Auntie Mater, all of the women in my life really, they don't tell me what to do, but they are very good about asking questions that make me think, right? So I'm talking to my girlfriends one night and I'm just catching them up on everything. And I'm like, yeah, I told Harpreet, you know, I feel proud of myself because I feel like I set a limit. I set a standard, like you have to tell your parents within a year. But as I'm saying this out loud to my friends, I'm kind of like, wait, no, that's not right. Like, why would I let you hide my kid for a year? You know, they already know about me. And being that I am Asian, I also know how Asian parents think. And if you are hiding something from your parents, they can use that against you because they'll be like, see, you hid it because you knew it was something bad. So if you tell them, then you can kind of reclaim that and show them like, this isn't something bad. I'm not ashamed of this. And like, that's why I'm telling you the truth.
Wait, repeat that again.
When you don't tell your parents, it gives the impression that it's something that you're ashamed of. And so they'll use that against you and say, look, you hid this from me because you knew that it was wrong and you knew that you weren't supposed to be doing it. And so by telling them straight up, it reclaims that and it shows them like, hey, I'm not ashamed of this. And this isn't something that's wrong that I'm doing, or the person that I love isn't wrong. And so then I went back to him after I had this conversation with my girlfriends. And I said to him, you know, I thought about it and I trust you and I believe in you when you say that, you know, in due time you will tell your parents. But I think that like, I just feel worried about it. I feel antsy about it. And to Harpreet's credit, he totally took the reins and he was like, you know what? You're right. I'm going to tell them.
Wow, yeah.
You know, I brought it up in a way, I guess, since I said that I didn't feel good about it. I didn't want to get to the point where I would have to give an ultimatum like, oh, you need to tell them within 6 months or else I'm gone. And so I'm so thankful that he understood. And he was like, you know what, I'm going to tell them. And so.
Man, he is a keeper, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a keeper. I tell him all the time, you're the bravest brown boy I've ever met in my life. Or not even just brown boy, you're the bravest boy. So Thanksgiving came around and he had to go back to Michigan, to spend the holidays with his family. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to tell them. But, the timing just was never right. And he wanted to like sit down and have a conversation with his parents about it. And I was like, oh, you wanted to have a whole conversation? I was more thinking like, this is how I would do it with my parents. I would let it casually slip to my mom. And then hopefully my mom will just tell my dad. But Harpreet's brave. He wanted to sit down with his parents and have a conversation and talk everything through. And so it didn't happen that Thanksgiving. And I was a little upset. Not upset, I guess I would say. I was a little apprehensive then because I felt like we had lost the wind in our sails for him to do it, because it felt like it had been pushed back again. And I was really thankful that he's the one that brought it back up again. So he came back after Thanksgiving. He came back to Chicago after Thanksgiving, and we talked about it. And he was like telling me all these things. And in my head, I'm like, oh, are these just excuses? But then the very next week, he went back to Michigan to run some errands, and he told his parents. When he called me afterwards, I could hear in his voice that he had told his parents, because he just sounded so defeated and disappointed.
Wait, why disappointed? He just told his parents, or they did not take the news
They
well?
didn't take the news well.
Oh, yes.
And he's such a pure-hearted person. And in his heart, he genuinely thought, my parents will be okay with it. But me being an Asian person, I knew already that it was going to be bad. So I anticipated that it was not going to be a good conversation. And to his credit, he really didn't want to talk about it. But I wanted him to feel like we were in this together. I didn't want him to feel like he was doing this big sacrifice by himself and that he had to bear the brunt of all their disapproval. So I kind of tried to comfort him in the fact that, like, I've been in your shoes. I've been the prized child, or I've been the star child who had to tell my parents that I got knocked up. So like I have fallen from grace before. And so I know what you're feeling. And I reassured him that no matter what your parents said, like, I don't take any of it personally. If they're upset or if they don't, quote unquote, like me, I understand that. It's not that they don't like me as a person. It's that they don't like the situation. And I can empathize. You're their one precious son.
I was going to ask.
Yeah.
He's the only one? Is he the only child?
No, so it's him and his sister.
But he's the only son.
But he's the only son. And, I said to him that night, I said, you've lived your whole life not necessarily doing what your parents wanted because it's what they wanted, but you've done what you wanted, and it just also happened to align with what your parents wanted, right? So you've never disappointed your parents. And so I understand that it's a shock for you to disappoint them for the first time. And so we talked about it, and I just wanted him to know that, like, I've been there before. I've been on the other side, and that whatever they say, whatever happens, I always want us to be open with each other, and that I would never take it personally. And, I would never be like, oh, your parents suck. I hate them because they hate me, because they don't hate me. They don't know me,
So how are they taking it now? Have they gotten kind of used to, kind of open to the fact that, yes, you already have a child?
So this was the beginning of December, so not that much time has passed, I suppose. It's only been like about 2 months or so. They're still not super enthused about the idea, but the thing that I focus on is how Harpreet feels. And if Harpreet feels like things will get better, then I trust him, because these are his parents. Mm-hmm. So he knows them best. And so if he feels confident, then even if I don't feel confident, I will trust him as like my partner to follow through.
You have so much trust.
I do. But you know what? It's because I don't want to be a pessimist.
Oh, yeah.
And for as far as Harpreet has gone, I don't know if the shoe was on the other foot, if I could do that. And so I tell him all the time, you're the bravest boy I know.
Now, on your
Could you imagine doing that?
what
Telling your mom?
well, you know, honestly, when I was younger,
Uh-huh.
I didn't want to date a Hmong girl at all.
Uh-huh.
You know, because I grew up watching TV and watching movies, and so I always wanted like the movie stars, right?
Yeah,
the,
yeah,
the white girl that is in my classroom and whatever it is.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I remember telling my mom, "Hey, mom, would you be okay if I dated this person who is not Hmong?" And my mom was not happy, and so that always discouraged me. And on top of that, you know, I always knew that I never had a chance anyway.
But could you imagine having to tell your mom, like, hey, mom, I'm dating this white girl and she's a single mom.
With a child already.
Yeah, she's a single mom that's been divorced.
No, my mom would be upset.
Yeah.
You know, but your parents were pretty cool about it. I'm talking about how he is not Hmong, you know, and religion is different, right? They're totally cool about it. Now, what if they weren't? How would you have reacted? Like, oh, should I pursue this relationship, you know, knowing that my mom and dad isn't for it, and knowing that they're going to give me an earful every time I see them, or when I see them, I feel as if I'm disappointing them. You know, how would you feel? Because it turned out better for you.
Mm-hmm.
But if the situation was different, how would you feel?
So I reflected on that, and I think that my first husband was kind of a lesson for me. And I think if I hadn't, that's why they always say, like, everything is a lesson, right? And so I think if I hadn't been with my ex-husband first, I wouldn't have the empathy to get through this tough time right now with Harpreet. Because with Dennis, my parents were just like his parents. I think we always grew up like, oh, if you get pregnant, you're going to get forced married, right? I got pregnant and my parents were like, please do not get married.
They're the total opposite.
They were the opposite because they did not like him. So they were like, please, Diana, please do not get married. We will help you with Vera. We will help you with everything. You will not be alone. You do not need to get married. But, you know, when we did get married, my thoughts weren't, oh, I'm getting married because just to get married. I understood that we had a child, and I think I'm a reasonable enough person where, and I think most people will find that if you had to make a situation work, you can make it work. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, you know, if these are the cards that I've been dealt, I will make the best life that I can with this person, and I'm going to have a family for my child, you know, a mom and a dad. And eventually it didn't work because, you know, in order for that situation to work, both people have to be like, you know, we're going to make the best of the situation. He obviously did not make the best of the situation, so it didn't work. But had he, we would still be together, you know. And my parents were not happy with it. My parents fought with me about it the entire time. And I can honestly say that the reason why we're not together has nothing to do with my parents.
Oh, okay.
And so it had everything to do with just the two of us. I could have listened to my mom yell at me and nag at me for the rest of my life. If we, as a couple, had a good relationship together, I could have gone through all of that.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
That first relationship or the marriage set your parents up for this one.
Yeah. They can't complain.
I guess to them, and I'm not sure, Dennis, if you're listening, I'm sorry, buddy, but like anything is better than Dennis, right?
Yes.
Anybody's better than Dennis.
Yes.
He's a nice, I know, we met him. He's
Yeah.
a nice guy, but again, you know, maybe in your parents' mind, anything's better or anyone's better than Dennis.
Yes. Anyone's better. Well, they still have other things that could be worse. But I think, and you know, Harpreet, he's just so nice and easygoing. And he's not the first guy that I've dated that I brought around my parents. There are other guys that I've dated that I've introduced to my parents. My parents are not shy about how they feel. So if they didn't like Harpreet, they would tell me because they've told me about the other guys before. But I can tell that they don't hate him.
You know what? What I like about what you did was you're honest with your parents. I'm assuming they all know about the other guys, like everybody before him.
Um,
I mean, not every one of them, but they know you're dating, you're out there, right?
yes, they know
And
that.
that they're not Hmong,
Yeah.
and you were honest with him that I'm dating, right? You don't have to disclose who you're dating, but I'm dating and they're not Hmong, right? And I think what that does, in my opinion, is that it allows them to just kind of slowly ease into knowing that you're eventually going to find someone that's not Hmong,
Yeah.
and I'm sure they're secretly hoping that it's going to be a
Right.
Hmong person, but if it's not, then you've already set them up for someone who is not Hmong. So
Yeah, and it's not to say that we're like Hmong haters. Like, oh, none of us ever want to date a Hmong person, but it just wasn't in the cards for us. You know, maybe it's. I think a lot of it is just the people that you spend time with, and we have a lot of friends from all different backgrounds. You know, we went to a school that was really diverse. I'd say like over half of my friends are not Hmong. I have 2 Hmong friends, and then after that, it's like Laos, African American,
yeah,
white, you know. So yeah, I think it really is just the people that you surround yourself around.
and I think your situation is. I think it should be somewhat an example for whoever's out there that is listening, that's going through a relationship that is not Hmong, and to not to say that you have the what would you call it, like the roadmap to having a relationship with a non-Hmong person, but there are some lessons to be learned, like being honest, making sure that your other partner is open with their parents, and you yourself being open with it, and just being open to it at all, and allow whatever consequence come, and then work through it. Because I know, I'm sure there's people out there that are in those situations who are single without a child and has difficulties being in a relationship that's not Hmong. So are you?
Yeah, we should tell them that you should tell your significant other that they have it a lot easier than Heartbreak, because they just have to sell the fact that you're not the same, that you're like from a different culture. Heartbreak has to also sell that I am a single mom. But yeah, I would agree that, like, I guess just the most important thing, not even in interracial relationships, but just in any relationship, like you want them to be your teammate and you want them to be your partner. You want to be on the same side,
Yeah, and that's really good information. That's really good advice to whoever's out there. So, but anyway, we're getting close to our time. Would you be willing to come back and give us any updates
Yes.
a year from now, 2 years from now,
Yeah.
if you're married or not married, or maybe you've moved on? Maybe, who knows, right?
Who knows? No, we can't think like that.
I
We're
like
going to get married and we're going to have 3 kids and we'll be living in Chicago. You can come visit us, Uncle Lee.
Well, hey, we probably will, because especially during the winter time, it's gonna be cold in Chicago.
Yeah.
Is he still in Chicago? I thought he's moving to. Is he moving back to Michigan or no?
Oh, no. He's permanently in Chicago.
In Chicago. All right, great. All right, Dana, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks. I mean, I feel like there's so much pressure to be like, to share your story that I feel like I didn't do the best at sharing.
It's okay. There's always next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a few people that's been in here, and I do want them to come back.
Yeah.
So that we can do a follow up, or we can, we can get additional explanation from them regarding the previous podcast. So
Yeah.
all right. So like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you, everybody.